You can see from the agenda a number of nominees and two bills. Among the nominees we'll consider today is Magistrate Judge C.J. Williams, nominated to the Northern District of Iowa. Judge Williams is a native of my home state of Iowa, graduated from the University of Iowa College of Law and clerked for Judge Donald O'Brien on the Northern District of Iowa. Donald O'Brien was appointed by President Kennedy. Judge Williams spent nearly 2 decades serving as an assistant U.S. attorney in Iowa. Early in his career, he served as a trial attorney in the Justice Department Criminal Division and as a special assistant to U.S. attorneys in the Eastern District of Virginia. I think you'll find him to be a very talented attorney and judge who is widely respected and recommended across the political spectrum back home in Iowa. He received a unanimously well-qualified rating. I want to explain a little bit how we go about this in Iowa. We have 5 lawyers who interviewed, in this case, I don't know how many, but in the Carter administration, or in the Obama administration, one set of openings we had, they interviewed 42 people. We submit 3 or 4 names to the White House. We often get pressure to say we ought to favor this person over that person. We did not do that in this case. There's a lot of people that probably had more support than C.J. Williams, as I had personal conversations of urging this one or that one to be appointed. When C.J. Williams was appointed, he came to my office and I said, "Have I ever met you before?" And he says, "Yeah, one time a few years ago, I was at a meeting where you were." So I have an opportunity to present to the United States Senate somebody I don't know very well, but I got confidence in the process that went forward to bring him to the United States Senate. We will also vote on 3 circuit court judges, 2 additional district court nominees, 1 U.S. attorney nominee, and 3 U.S. Marshal nominees. The committee will also vote on Jody Hunt, nominated to be Assistant Attorney General, Civil Division. On the agenda today, we have S-994, Protecting Religiously Affiliated Institutions Act, a bipartisan bill introduced by Senator Hatch and Feinstein, which was previously held over. This bill amends the Church Arson Prevention Act to clarify that the act includes threats to religious institutions, whether they be synagogues, mosques, churches, and religious community centers. And I believe that Church Arson Prevention Act was passed because we had 4 young people burned to death in a church down in one of the southern states. So it seems to me an extension of that legislation to this is very appropriate. We also have on the agenda for the first time S-2644, the Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act, introduced by Graham, Coons, Tillis, and Booker. As I said last week, this bill is a product of months of work by a bipartisan co-sponsors to reconcile the 2 special counsel bills. They were introduced on the same day last August. There may be members on my side that wonder why we're moving ahead with this. I'm not sure last fall when I said to the people we aren't going to move this bill that there would be a bipartisan compromise put together, but there is a bipartisan compromise put together. And so when I make my word to the people, if you can get together to have a bill, then that's why it's on the agenda, just in case anybody in the leadership of the Republican Party of the United States Senate or even on this committee, they'll know then why as chairman of this committee I'm moving forward. Now, what I just told you, I guess there's no point in reading it again.
Well, we may be slow, you know.
Okay. Well, so then I even reached out to, well, I'm not going to read that. As a result, we will hold the bill over today at the request of several members of the committee and mark it up next week. Some have raised the question of why the committee plans to proceed on the markup, especially after the majority leader said it wouldn't wouldn't be brought up in the Senate. I answered this question, I'll bet 10 times. The press is always trying to put us between me and the president or me and the majority leader. I don't care to be put in the middle of anything. I just plan on doing the work that this committee ought to do. And how do you get things done? You get it done by moving a slow pace through the various steps you go to get there. Obviously, the views of the majority leader are important to consider, but they do not govern what happens here in the Judiciary Committee. If consideration on the floor was a standard for approving a bill in committee or not, we wouldn't be probably moving any bills out of this committee. But the other side, we've had slow-ups for various reasons that there's no point in my being political at this point, but I think everybody's obvious of why the agenda of the United States Senate is moving very clearly, or very slowly. Now, I did raise some issues about the constitutionality of this whole issue. I've expressed my own concerns about the bill. At our hearing last September, we had prominent legal scholars offer differing views as to whether the special counsel's bill were constitutional, but each acknowledged that there was uncertainty about how the current Supreme Court would come down on the issue. It's appropriate for members of the Judiciary Committee to discuss constitutional issues with potential legislation, but it's also important to acknowledge the fact that we're senators, not judges or presidents, though some of this in this room might like to be one day. In the Federalist Papers, James Madison wrote that our constitutional structure is designed so that the ambitions of each branch of government counteracts the ambitions of the others. Where there are issues of national importance, such as the appointment of special counsels, Congress must consider its constitutional role and act to make sure that it can avail itself of its traditional checks against the executive branch. In my view, that means that Congress should at least require the executive branch to issue detailed reports to Congress about the appointment, investigation, and removal of special counsel. And especially in light of the work done by the bipartisan group of senators from this committee, I think that this committee should consider whether a law requiring judicial review of the removal of special counsel is appropriate. These are issues with implications beyond Mueller's investigation or even the Trump administration. They would affect every future administration, both Democratic and Republican, and I look forward to the discussion that we're going to have next week. Senator Feinstein.